So, being Christian men, it's an interesting name to call it Hell Week.
Yeah.
But again, inferred in that is suffering.
Yes.
And this is pain. And it's funny because I was thinking too, like, hell, we believe, is that total isolation. It's just you.
Yes.
Like, I want nothing to do with God. And God is like, okay, you can have what you want.
Yeah.
It's just me, myself, and I for eternity.
Yeah.
Like, that's hell. But again, the suffering of Hell Week, it's contrasted by the community aspect, by the team aspect. So yeah, it's hell in earthly suffering, mental suffering,
right,
emotional suffering. But there's something, the grace of God is in that team you have with you.
That's right. And I think in a lot of respects, it was designed around that same principle you talked about, that for a week, we're going to deprive you of a lot of the things that give you comfort. We talked about your physical gifts, the being able to draw mentally and all those reasons that inspire and motivate you. Mm-hmm. Even the small comforts of a lot of the Hell Week training is done in a remote area, so you're not around other things of civilization. You lose track of time. You don't know how long the tests are going to be. You lose control over the environment. You're basically just following what they say, and you go until they say stop. And it can be very disorienting to say, I don't have control over anything, and I am without these things that I maybe not even realize gave me comfort and peace, that I had control over my life and my environment. And then in that environment like I talked about, though, maybe that as designed, that would lead you to double down on serving your team, your buddies in that boat. It's like, that's all we got.
Right.
They control everything else, the instructors. They're going to make it hell in terms of a terrible experience, but we can control each other and in terms of like how we perform and take care of each other, and our attitude. And then you realize how powerful a tool that is. And I think, a lot of us come out of there, feeling like, this is, that's kind of like the secret weapon there of, the heart and the will. Yeah, and as a team, what you can do is incredible. And you only learn that by maybe being deprived of those other things that are common comforts.
One of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Great book.
Who was an Austrian psychologist, a Jewish man who lived through the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Was by his doctor credentials, was somehow able to survive Auschwitz, and wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning, because he resumed his practice after the war. But the whole so much suffering can come our way in life, but we always can choose how we respond to it. And it's not easy, but to control your mindset and to control how I respond from the heart, from the will make all the difference in those moments of suffering and literal hell on earth.
That's right. And I think that book is a great example of that. He talked about that meaning is that thing that we're driving for. And you talked about, is it worth it? Mm-hmm. Why should I go through with this? And I think, in a lot of respects, people have sufferings and trials that in a lot of ways are far greater than Hell Week or Buds. But I think the same lessons of the human heart apply, of that finding meaning in that is just incredibly powerful. And it gives purpose, and it can be redeeming. And I think a lot of times we lose sight of, we may not know what the meaning is, but we should trust it's there. For example, there's so many guys in Hell Week that they didn't know I saw the gesture they gave or the word that they said, and I never had a chance to thank them, but I drew strength from their strength. And you see it on the flip side with guys that would quit in Hell Week. One, it would come in bunches, meaning someone would quit who was considered a leader or a physical specimen, and other guys would say, man, if he can't do it, how can I get through this? If he's lost heart, I can lose heart.
Yeah. And
it goes on the flip side too, of one person enduring and going a little further. It's all right, he's still under this boat, he's still pushing it. I'm going to keep going too. And it's a powerful thing about, man, the human heart, how it speaks to other hearts, and how we really can draw strength from that. And to know that us enduring suffering and giving meaning, lifting it up, has an incredible power in others that I don't think we really can sometimes understand and appreciate. I think also that to the point of the meaning is, staying in the present moment. A lot of people would quit, in anticipation of what was going to come. A lot of people quit at sunset, interestingly, like another night of Hell Week. And like that darkness is, again, part of that desolation feel, and it can weigh on the heart. Or we're slowly going into surf torture, and that cold water's coming, and I think with that, that book talks about, and with that sense of meaning is staying in the present moment and just dealing with the trials, as they say in Buds, one evolution at a time. Let's just take this one step at a time. And you see other people do that. You can do the same, and it gets you through that.
There's so many. We can go in 5 directions from here.
Yeah.
There's so many parallels with the Christian faith of the walk of a disciple. I know you love St. Ignatius and the Sermon of Spirits because there's so much parallels with consolation, times of peace, and desolation, moments where you feel far from God and you just feel dry and there's just kind of darkness right now. And like pursuing, like not giving up. Like the sun is literally setting, and how the human heart can drop at that.
That's right.
And it's like, no, it's like you keep going in the dark.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And they do things like, hey, everyone say goodbye to the sun, wave to the sun. Like they want you to really feel it. Like, oh, there it goes. You guys aren't gonna have it.
I love the gallows humor, by the way.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna be mine all night long. It's you and me. Like, oh no, here it comes. But you're right. There's that in times of desolation. You talk about Saint Ignatius. That's kind of what you could say is not being able to come up with reasons why I want to keep going through this. Why I decided to make this commitment. Well, that, as Saint Ignatius talked, that's not the moment to be having that internal debate. That's the time to kind of just double down and have faith in the resolution you made in times of consolation that this is the path that you're supposed to go on.
Yeah.
And then in times of consolation, so maybe in Hell Week, for example, it's in a very tangible way. It's maybe you're getting a snack, or it's getting a breather. Be thankful you have that moment. But at the same token, you don't get comfortable in that because next they're going to rip that away from you, and you're going to be in the cold water. And then some guys really just it's too much to go back in because I don't want to leave this comfort again. So be thankful for the comfort, but know, hey, there's more trials to come, and I'm gonna take strength from this. But I'm not gonna make my home in this moment because I'm still on a journey. Let's say, but
it's a wave. Like
yeah,
I love the water. I love surfing, and so there's that sense of the spiritual life is these constant waves. Yeah. Of like there'll be moments where you're up and be thankful for that.
Right.
Know that a down is coming.
That's right.
And when you're in the trough, when you're down, like know, okay, this sucks, but that's not the end.
That's right.
It's going to go up again at some point. It may be an hour, it may be a day, it may be a year from now, but like there's always this movement.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about it. Yeah, I agree. And then you think about suffering. Kind of a quick side note here. It's fascinating how there's 2 types of suffering that I think are tools in the tool bag they use during Hell Week. One is the like physical test. Let's say like I've got to carry this log, and that takes a certain response of like I got to grit through, push my body. We talked about that. Well, there's another type of suffering which you see a lot in what they would call surf torture. So surf torture is where you would lock arms and then lay down with your head back to the water.
So you can't see the wave coming.
That's right.
I'm facing
the beach.
Right.
Yeah. And I got in the waters, I don't know, 50, 60 some degrees. It's at night. And you're laying just where it's above your head there. So your body is just around this, call it like liquid pain all around you. It's just cold. And it sucks. Nobody wants the cold, right? And then these waves will come over you. And then the next 10 seconds, you're trying to like get your breath back and spit that out and orient yourself. And then it's still cold. And then they'd make you, take your jacket off, your shirt off. And then like it gets colder and colder, right? And some guys would, be good in the, I'm going to carry this log, active pain, let's say, but really struggle in what surf torture is more as like passive pain. And you could see this kind of in life. There's probably a lot of pains people go through that require a different response or a different nature of it. And in that respect, a lot of people talk about like you can't muscle your way through surf torture. Like it's not going to get any warmer the more you grit and try to flex your muscles here.
Right.
And so what do you do? It's almost like I have no power over this, and their only response really is to like let go, and go to your happy place and just embrace it and let it happen to you. But it feels somewhat disempowering and kind of unnerving that I can't control this. I just must endure it. But again, I think there's so many parallels that you take from these visceral experiences that can apply to the spiritual life, that can apply to things throughout life that I think a lot of people go through.
Even just the to go back to the heart. as I was listening to your story, I thought of Lord of the Rings and the unlikeliness of who's going to defeat the source of evil in the world. It's the little guy,
Yeah.
with the big heart.
Yeah,
It's not the guy, the tall adults, the men with the swords.
Yeah.
They're usually the guys that falter.
That's right.
And they fall. Which by the way, there go I, but for the grace of God. I look at Boromir. I used to like, oh yeah, Aragorn's the best. Boromir is awful. As the years have gone on, I've had more mercy on Boromir, who at one point he falters and tries to take the ring from Frodo.
Yeah.
But redeems himself at the very end. I've realized, like, again, Boromir, it's easier to point a finger at him, but it's like, man, I'm Boromir.
That's right.
Like, I falter constantly, but I pray my story ends with me fighting.
And that's a great point.
It just, again, like, it's not the most jacked external, like, that's the guy who's going to endure and make it to the end physically or in the spiritual life. It's often like the one that the unassuming, humble, like, servant who's just 1 foot ahead at a time.
And I think you're right. It's a daily, talk about earn your trident every day. It's a daily struggle and test. And it's a great equalizer of the test of the heart. Like, all those other things go away, and you can see people and you measure them by like virtue and their character. And you're right. You see some teammates in the character they display. It's incredibly inspiring. But I think the phrase that comes to mind is St. Paul, I think, to Timothy, talking about, I have finished the race. He didn't say, I won the race. And the goal is not to be necessarily like, I'm the best. Not that we shouldn't strive for that, we should. But the idea, like, some of these trials in life, it's like, you need to endure. And the path of finishing it, is up and down, and we may struggle at some points.
Right.
And the important thing is to get back up when we fall. And the important thing is to recommit to carrying those logs of life, so to speak, those trials we've got, and to keep going and not get discouraged with ourselves and where we fall. I think a lot of guys, maybe that was a big part of it too, of not be comfortable with the fact of they're used to always being good at something and then struggle. But it's just very humbling. But the point is to keep going and to endure. And it's kind of like the marathon people talk about, like, oh man, different stages. I had no energy, then I found energy, then I hit the wall, and you don't know what's going to come next. And it really is. It's like a faith experience in that regard of like, I'm going to trust that there's going to be strength there when I need strength. Right now, I don't know how it's going to be possible because my state and my exhaustion, but I'm just going to keep going. And I think you're right. The goal is to finish the race, is to keep going.
Well, and being social creatures, we're not doing it on our own. As much as we may feel like we're on our own, we're not. And we have to reach out and ask for help even. As you said, like, the social creature dynamic of, like, my throwing in the towel could take the wind out of other people versus me digging deep. And again, taking one more step could inspire others.
And I think that's a very important point of, we talk about buds as a team sport and life as a team sport.
It's not a zero-sum game.
It's not. And our actions affect others, good and bad, in ways that we may not always know. And, as a related note, sadly, there's a suicide crisis in the military veteran community. And
now, is that of a certain, like, age bracket, like Vietnam, or does that go, like, up and down all veterans?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my understanding is it spans a lot of demographics and groups, which is really sad. And I think that I'm not sure the causes of that, but it's something that's obviously disheartening to myself, and I think a lot of Americans who see what these people have gone through. And I was talking to a former SEAL friend of mine who said that another veteran had reached out to him saying, hey, I'm thinking about ending my life. And in that moment, it wasn't necessarily, he's like, well, what do I say to this guy who, I know what he's been through, I know what kind of person he is, and, appeals to maybe his wife and kids and, what people are going to think of you didn't really hit home. That wasn't going to do it for him. It kind of fell flat. He said, what I said was, you and I both know there's a handful of guys that are are just holding on. And by you doing this, you've made it that much easier for them to go through with it too.
Wow.
And the guy said, that's all I need to hear. Thanks, brother. And as if, wow, it really speaks to that we're all in this together kind of aspect of life. And then in the purpose giving, you go back to Viktor Frankl's Man Search for Meaning, how we can draw meaning from the idea of, I'm not going to let that guy down, and I'm going to keep going because he's counting on me. And at times, I'm probably going to count on him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. And you were deployed how long?
I did 5 deployments. So, I was in active duty for 9 years. But,
yeah. Afghanistan.
No, I went to Iraq a few times, and then also in Africa, in various places. Yeah.
And I know, again, what those stories are your stories. We're just going to focus on Hell Week and the training that the lessons you learned there. But thank you for your service and saying yes to the call.
No, it's an honor that I can serve my country, and again, it was an honor to be a part of such an incredible team, an incredible brotherhood.
Now, do we really need another book by a Navy SEAL? I think so.
Okay.
Always. And I look forward to the one you're going to write.
We'll see.
You had synthesized some, when we were talking about this conversation, you synthesized, 5 lessons from Hell Week.
Okay.
And I said, I love it. I want to hear it. So let's go.
All right. So can wrap it up thing. If someone's got 2 minutes, here are Conor's five takeaways, I guess, and
5 lessons from Hell Week for the hellish moments in life.
There you go. All right. I think number 1 is take things one evolution at a time. So evolution is what the phrase would be in BUD/S about an activity that you're doing right now. And I think we talked a little bit about staying in the present moment. That really speaks to that, and in times that you're difficult, maybe you're carrying this log of this boat, the idea is, all right, I'm just going to try to get to breakfast. I'm going to try to get to that sunrise. I'm going to get to that rest period, and just look for small wins, small steps. Otherwise, you can get overwhelmed with all the trials ahead of you, all the ridge lines to continue climbing, and how am I going to have strength for those? Instead, just focus on the present moment. Just take to the next evolution at a time. And it's amazing how things work themselves out. There's strength when strength is needed, but taking that small bites is important. The other, I think, lesson learned from it was look out for others. And we talked about this idea of team being so integral to BUD/S and to SEALs. And it even comes down to, I think the odds are increased of getting through a selection course like BUD/S when you're outwardly oriented. And it makes sense in some respect because you're focusing less on your own pain and feeling sorry for yourself because you're focusing, how's my team doing? How can I help them get through this? How can I be a good teammate to them? And all of a sudden the pain kind of isn't at the forefront of your mind. And then you're kind of looking to other things. I mean, gosh, in our faith, it talks about this, like St. Maximilian Kolbe, he read him in the starvation bunker and how long he lasted. And what was he doing that whole time? He wasn't sitting there being like, I hate this, I'm going to keep going. He was helping others with singing songs and prayer and encouraging. He wasn't even focusing on himself. And I think there's something to that in the human heart, that we look out for others, look out for kind of outwardly focus is really important for tough moments. The third phrase that comes to mind is another kind of BUD/S phrase, which is embrace the suck. Mm-hmm. We talked about, surf torture is a good example of that, where it feels like I can't get any relief from this. And so the more you try to find relief and try to find comfort, the worse it gets, because there's this maddening lack of satisfaction for that need. So maybe the mindset shift is more of, embracing it, and as the waves you're talking about, maybe at the core, like letting it wash over you, and go to your happy place, stay calm, stay centered, but really take it up, and it's amazing how the mind can respond to that, because it doesn't, in the body doesn't know, but it's more like, I'm not going to wait for this to come to me. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go seek it out. There's strength in that, a strength of character of we're not afraid of this. We're gonna go embrace it and let it be, and that really can be a source of strength. I think the fourth thing I would say is bring humor, and there's a certain power in humor, and there's a few guys in my class that were just so good at this, where a lot of us are kind of just kind of bearing down and getting through it. They'd have the right phrase at the right time, and it would just change the mood. You know, I remember, the first day of Buds, they call it 1-1 day. That's the first day of the first phase. Like, oh, boys, we're starting this big journey, and I got a lot ahead of us here, and a lot of us are kind of like, just, okay, here we go. He's walking around. It's like he was about to go to the club and go to a party. He's like, 1-1 day, baby. High five, 1-1 day. Here it goes. Woo, I'm so great to be here. And, it feels like he's fooling himself, but fools us. But it kind of gets the attitude of, like, if you give yourself a mindset of, I'm going to the club, I'm having a party, I like this. You try to trick yourself, but it makes it a little more fun. And then cracking jokes throughout the time, making fun of instructors, having little victories, like all those things go a long way to lifting the spirits. And I think we can all kind of be that guy in the right moment during tough times with others. And then the last thing I think is just believe, and believe that's possible. There's as I mentioned, a lot of instructors would say the body is capable of 10 times more than you think. It's one thing to hear that, and so another thing to deeply, believe that. But other things relate to that. You believe that you'll have the strength for tomorrow when today it feels like there's no strength, or believe there's meaning to the suffering. When it feels cold and dark and desolate, and the pain feels unrelenting. That there is something redeeming about this. There's meaning to this. It's worth enduring this. And they talk about in our Christian faith, this idea of faith is small as a mustard seed can move mountains. Like, that really speaks to the same thing of, like, there's no way to think rationally that this would make sense, but then you see it happen. Like, I can't believe it. I wasn't sure that was possible in the spiritual life and in life in general. But Jesus talks about I judge the heart, others judge outward appearances. The idea of why'd you doubt I was with you, and it kind of feels that the whole thing of believing in yourself in those moments, believing in the gifts that you're given, believing that the Lord is with you. All those things are powerful, I think, for getting through tough times.
Dude, I love it.
All right,
dude.
Good.
Thank you so much for coming to have a conversation here.
Good.
This has been great. You are not on social media, which I respect.
Yeah.
So people can't track you down. We will put a link in the show notes if anyone feels called, they want to reach out to Conor to say hey, say thank you, to ask a question. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, or leave us a review. And God bless.